I want to quickly, if I can, just talk about strategic voting, because that's quite important. Jocelyn, let me start with you. What role has it played in these primaries?
It appears as though the consolidation around Joe Biden by various other candidates who have dropped out by the Democratic Party is playing out by the voters' strategic decisions. I mean, you take a state like Maine, for example. Maine's a quirky state. They were the state that voted Ross Perot second only to Bill Clinton in '92. We had an independent governor for many years. We have Republican senators and Democratic House of Representatives. It can go all over. It gave an electoral vote to Trump in 2016, for example. Many of the same people who had voted for Obama just before. Bloomberg was polling very well in Maine leading up to this, but right now it is a head-to-head, about 34% both for Biden and for Sanders, and Bloomberg is way down. This is a state where Bloomberg would normally do well, an independent businessman that works for the voters of Maine, but not right here. We're seeing the Democratic primary voters saying to themselves, we need to consolidate, and if I'm not for Bernie, as Joe said, they already know whether they're a Bernie Sanders voter or not, and if they're not, they're consolidating around Biden.
Strategic voting, Joe.
Yeah, I think you see a lot of Democrats who maybe had other favorites, particularly as those favorites drop out, now turning to Joe Biden. Another place, in addition to Maine, where that is really strongly playing out is in Minnesota. Right, the polling that's come out over the last week or so showed Joe Biden very far back in the pack. Amy Klobuchar may be fighting it out with Bernie Sanders to win her home state. But as Klobuchar and others have dropped out, Joe Biden now looks to be in the lead in Minnesota and may actually pull out a win there after having been in a single-digit polling situation less than a week ago. And so that's really that momentum is the result of voters making choices that maybe wasn't their first choice, but is their choice now going forward in the primary process.
Before we go off air, let's quickly talk about Minnesota and Massachusetts.
Yes.
Jocelyn.
And again, it goes back to that strategic voting. I mean, as mentioned previously, Massachusetts is the state where Warren is the senator. She was polling a strong second. Bernie Sanders was actually polling first, and Biden was at third in the polls. But that is flipped. Elizabeth Warren is now coming in a distant third, and Biden is winning that state. That was not the projection ahead of this voting day. That is showing even the Massachusetts voters, who have some of the most reasons to care about Elizabeth Warren, that they are consolidating around what they perceive as the stronger person to take on Trump in the general election in the fall.
Joe?
I think it also shows the role of the political party, right? It's an organization for coordinating. And so the office holders, the other candidates, having essentially a discussion semi-publicly amongst themselves over the best path forward, and then signaling to the party's voters about what the solution they've come up with and the solution to rally behind their reasonably popular, reasonably well-regarded former vice president as the party's candidate, as opposed to Senator Sanders, who, despite his virtues, has not been a member of the party by his own choice, for his whole political career has refused to associate with that party, and so the party is an organization choosing a candidate from among their own ranks, and the party in the electorate following the leadership, I think, are the sort of two important political science stories of the night.